What does every business want? I want more leads. Great. 3 to 7% of your target ideal customer is actively searching for your business right now, or a business like yours. Dude, I grew my power washing company with, when you don't have as much work, but you have more time, certain services like anyone could get a result. That's gonna be the best way to generate work for a new business.
All right, what's going on, guys? Today I'm joined by Dave Carroll. Dave is the founder of Dope Marketing, which I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with. But he's the founder of Dope Marketing, and he actually got his business started back with Lion Share Maintenance. That's based out of Minnesota. So Dave, before we dive too deep into things, do you mind just sharing a bit about the businesses you're currently a part of and your story getting to where you are now?
Yeah, so the first business I ever started, I was 25 years old, was Lion Share Maintenance. We started off as a window cleaning company, then evolved into power washing, gutter cleaning, eventually Christmas lights. I was very involved in that business for the first 4 or 5 years. And then some of us got the entrepreneurial bug, started looking at other stuff. I came out with a product that depending on how long, I know a lot of the audience is in the power washing industry, depending on how long some of the listeners have been around, you might remember Proposal. I came out with a product, it was 4 or 5 years into my power washing business, and it was what PandaDoc is now, or there's another one, was that LegalZoom, where you can do the documents, and it would create a pretty proposal from putting all your stuff in. And what I saw was the power washing business and the home service business was amazing, but I always felt so limited being in a market like Minneapolis, where we could really only work 7.5 months out of the year. So I got into some software stuff with Proposal, which led me to the world of data. Understanding audience targeting, how to get different lists like homeowners with a home value, or how many kids they have, or businesses, different targeted stuff. And I made the decision to pass over the reins of my cleaning company into about the 7th year, which would have been we've been open, I think we're at 14 years, sort of about 7 years ago, where I really stopped being removed totally from the day-to-day and started focusing on some other businesses. And then fast forward a couple more years, we started Dope Marketing. It'll be 4 years in October of this year. And we help a ton of companies in the home service space make data-driven decisions with traditional marketing like direct mail and print. So I've been around the block in the home service space, local businesses. That's really my jam.
That's awesome. And so what you just mentioned, and what I really like, is that you're focused heavily on data and automation and things of that nature. And when people think of traditional marketing, which is what Dope Marketing specializes in, they think, isn't it pretty straightforward? You get some marketing material, send it out, and that's that. But in reality, there's a lot more that goes into it. So I guess the first thing to kind of bridge the gap, do you mind, sharing what your strategy is when it comes to something like direct mail?
Absolutely. So outside of Dope being a cool name, it actually stands for data on previous engagement. And so when I say we help business owners make data-driven decisions, one of the first things we do when we start working with a client is we take your customer list from last year and do what's called a data model. We put all of them on a spreadsheet, and then we put all of them on a map. When we put them on the spreadsheet, we see what's the average age? What's the average value of their home? How many kids do they have? What's their income? What's their credit score? Is there a single woman in the house? Is there a senior in the house? Finding consistencies in your current customer list. And then we take those jobs, we put them on a map, and we roll out one of the strategies that we do for every one of our clients, which is called sweet spots. We take our neighborhood blitz tool, we draw a shape on a map around a cluster of your current jobs, and then we only target the people with traditional marketing that match the exact criteria of your current customer.
Awesome. Okay. And so when you're talking about a cluster, is it a cluster around a single house in that immediate area, or is it a cluster around a whole service area?
Great question. So what we're really looking for is a cluster of homes, like jobs. And so my business here in the Twin Cities services about a 25-mile radius, but we have pockets. When you put in there, what's great about our strategies, you can do all this on your own. If you have the time to figure all this stuff out, you could get on Google Maps, upload your jobs, and when you're looking for clusters or sweet spots, you just want a density of jobs. So it's much deeper than a zip code level, it's a neighborhood level. And of course, depending on your service area, your jobs might be further away or tighter. But when we look for clusters, I'm looking for 3 to 5 jobs within 1,000 homes or a couple thousand homes to really, really get granular on, I like to lean into a strategy, Michael, or a thought process around people live in the same neighborhoods because humans are predictable creatures. We do what makes us comfortable. And when you look around your neighborhood, depending on where you're at in your life, how old you are, your family size, like whatever, you think about like the people in your neighborhood are living relatively similar lifestyles because they can afford to live in that place where you live. So you have the same stuff going on in common. And so outside of the fact that like people live or do what people live in places that make them feel comfortable, they live around people that make them feel comfortable. So more likely than not, they're doing the same things like in their life. They can afford the same services. They're making the same decisions. But let's take it further. In a neighborhood that you're working in, the houses were built around the same years of the same materials by 3 to 5 of the same builders. So the things that are going like wrong or the things you're maintaining or upkeeping or keeping up with the Joneses, it's all relative. And so when you get out of the fact of like shotgun marketing, like a lot of traditional marketing, right? I'm going to drop some EDDM. I'm going to go blast a bunch of door hangers or yard signs out, getting a little bit more predictable of like touching less people more times, getting your message in front of more people. Like that's what we're about.
It's a really interesting point you make. Probably most people don't think that deep into it, but like if you look at like a roofing company, you hear it all the time where they'll do tons of jobs in a neighborhood, almost every house, because they're on the same exact pattern. They were probably built around the same time. They need a new roof around the same time. And so they're super busy there until there's no work left, and then they're on to the next one. It's funny you say that, but that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's just like, I think marketing a lot of times can get very overcomplicated because there's so many options and so many different platforms and channels like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn. It's so easy to get on there and like run ads, but like, what are you really doing? And so when you get around like, what does every business want? I want more leads. Great. So like, let's focus on like changing the thought pattern around not hitting everyone that could possibly use our service, but truly defining like our brand, our messaging, what we're about, the type of jobs that we want to do, really focusing on the people that are just more likely to like need that problem solved. So there's a stat, 3 to 7% of your target ideal customer is actively searching for your business right now, or a business like yours. The other 93 to 97%, it's your job to keep your brand, your company in front of them. So when they want to, or when they need to make that decision, you're the one that they choose, or at least you're in the running for someone they would get an estimate from. And I think a lot of times we get lost in the fact, there's a stat I like to rattle off a lot. So like, Michael, you went to Harvard like I did, right? Harvard grads, both of us?
No, I did not.
Me either. But at Harvard, they said that it takes 7 to 11 touches to get a cold consumer to remember a brand, to make a buying decision. And we did a case study at Dope over the last 2.5 years. The average local business is only getting 2 to 4 touches on their ideal customer. And so if you look at just like tightening up where you're spending either your marketing dollars or even more valuable, your time, if you're doing any form of like guerrilla marketing, the yard signs, the door hangers, like any of that type of stuff, you just really got to get disciplined about focusing on like getting more touches or more impressions with just the people that are more likely to use your service.
For sure. That's definitely a huge point. We're going to dive into that in just a second. But just before we do, I kind of want to wrap on who we're sending this material to. So if I have an existing business, I have the past customers, then I have the data, and I know what to go off of in terms of like future mailers and stuff like that. But let's say hypothetically, I'm a brand new business with no previous data. Should I do, traditional marketing like this, sending out mailers? And if so, how should I go about choosing which areas to target?
Yeah, so I think like anyone that opens a local business or a service business, 70, 80% of the time, they're from the area that they're doing this in. There's a small percentage of new businesses that are their spouse got a job, they're transitioning out of something else, they're in a new area, military, whatever stuff, where like they're starting new and they don't really know the area. This answer is going to be more for the 70, 80% that are at least familiar with their market. What I like to do is like, when you don't have as much work, but you have more time, we know one of the most important numbers you'll ever hear in your life is 1440. It's how many minutes you have in the day. And so when you look at where you're spending your most valuable currency, your time, I'm not going to say that like, depending on the time of year, like spring or fall for specific types of businesses, kids are back to school, wash away the winter campaigns, like that type of stuff. certain services like gutter cleaning, anyone could get a result. If you offer a service like that, like gutter cleaning or a maintenance service, like something where it's more just labor intensive than it is equipment and training, there are times of the year when any company could do a shotgun approach of sending EDDM, like every door direct mail, or just going on Zillow and searching like $1 million home and finding those neighborhoods and just really focusing on like getting impressions there, because people that are more affluent are just going to be able to afford services to maintain their home. Now, where I think like mail versus, other aspects of traditional marketing, dude, I grew my power washing company with yard signs, like being obnoxious about them. I always like to joke like, oh, well, Dave, I can't put them up in my town, or I don't know the rules, or what. Like, dude, I've been to jail before. I've never been to jail for putting out a yard sign. Like it's the idea of how cost effective it is to do things like yard signs or door hangers. If you're from the area, you know the neighborhoods you want to be in, or maybe you only have done a handful of jobs. You don't have a full year of data to look back on, but you know where you're getting some type of traction. The idea of yard signs or door hangers costing a couple $100, and because your schedule's not all the way booked, you're a newer business, or maybe you just hired your second crew, so you got some time or whatever. I think one of the most cost-effective ways to advertise a business is putting out a simple yard sign, like just your service and a phone number, or a door hanger in an area, and just banging on that, because the cost that you have to spend to get that messaging out is minimal. You might have to spend a little bit of time, whether it's you or a neighborhood kid or someone you can get to get the stuff out. I do not think allocating a budget of $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 a month for a brand new business on direct mail is a good decision at all. I don't think direct mail will ever be the one thing that changes someone's business. I think that based on where you're at in your company, and specifically for this question, for newer businesses, looking at more of that like guerrilla style traditional marketing of something that you can hand out, pass out, drop off, whether you're doing residential or commercial services, that's going to be the best way to generate work for a new business.
Got it. So, and I like the term you use, the shotgun approach. I haven't heard that one before. But essentially, if you are in the beginning stages, you don't have the data, you do have kind of like that more so subjective data. Like you have experience going out, or at least knowing where the more affluent neighborhoods are. So initially, maybe focus your efforts on there. But really, the goal is to just gather data. So then once you have it, then you know how to target everything properly in the future. And
even take it a step further. So you got to think like whether you're officing like from your home, or maybe you have a storage unit, or wherever you're at in your transition of being a new business, you got to make sure you're looking at two things. And I think a lot of times people look past this. You got to look at proximity and capacity. You do not want to be, we've all been guilty of it when we started our company. We would go anywhere for $1. The only way that happens is if you're marketing or advertising wrong. You're doing like Angie's List or one of those type of services where you're getting leads from the wrong places, or you're thinking like, man, I don't have any work, I'd go anywhere. You are better served not driving across town for one job where you don't really want work in that area than taking that day and spending it getting materials out in an area you want to work in. Being very, very, very disciplined about your service area and where you're spending your time, because like you don't think about this as you're growing, but what happens is you don't look at this shit for a couple of years and you get so spread out that like you have these weird pockets. You don't really want to go there, but it's like what you're in control of that being a new business. The other thing is capacity. Like you have to understand if you're maybe your only crew, or you have one other crew that's part-time or whatever, it's just as bad to generate too many leads as it is to generate not enough leads. And so when you get very disciplined and strategic around where you're putting your messaging out, but then also like what type of jobs you're doing, I think a lot of times we can get lost in that right away when we start our business. But like, unless you're planning on just starting this thing, running it for the year and not doing it next year, not making 1 week or 1 month decisions, but making 1 year decisions, especially starting off in your business. Super important.
100%. Awesome. So at this point, for anyone listening that's planning on, kind of taking this route, they understand where to send out material. Now, what material should be sending out, and kind of like how should they structure it? What should it look like?
Yeah. So like a lot of us in the home service business know how to do our job. We're not designers. We didn't go to school for design. The best advice I can give is just give up control. If you're going to go spend money, don't go on Fiverr. Don't try to do something cheap. Your brand and your messaging shouldn't be cheap. There are strategies for every industry that, we could advise through some of them here, but it's basically like who, what, where, when, why. Who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? When do you do it? What does it feel like to work with you? One of the best like strategies or advice that I like to get, in a world of, and I want to be clear, I'm not an AI guy. I can't spell AI. But when you think about the world right now and the ability to generate content and headlines and different things like this, if you can make a list of the most frequently asked questions that you get proposed by your customers, like what are they asking you when they hire you for your services? Those are the things you want to be talking about in your marketing. Who are we? What do we do? Your average customer has 100 problems. Your business probably solves 2 to 7 of them perfectly. You have to be able to understand, like, go back to that 3 to 7% of people are looking for you. The other 93 to 97% are your job. You want to truly think about like what questions are people asking in the process of hiring you? Some great content that I love when I see companies put out is like, how do you hire someone like you? What does it feel like? What's the process? If I want to get an estimate to power wash my house, like what does that look like? The days of video, short form content, landing pages, like all this is accessible at our fingertips. So I think if you really hold yourself accountable for like the who, what, where, when, why, but then just making sure like you only have so much time to capture someone's attention, depending on the marketing channel, whether it's Facebook or Google or Instagram or direct mail or a flyer or a billboard or a TV commercial or a streaming ad or whatever. And you have to be very intentional that like, as much as you want to believe it, someone hiring you is not their number one priority. They have life going on. And that's why these multiple touches are required to get a customer to trust you. In this day and age, like, Mike, have you been on Instagram or Facebook today?
I have.
What was the last ad you saw?
I think it was one of my own, actually. Actually, no, it was probably yours, actually.
So let's say in a world where like we couldn't answer, we don't know because we see so many of them all day. The idea is like if you can put the answer to a question someone would ask in front of someone and then use that to like build trust and just keep showing them who you are. Why did you start your business? What is your team about? The offers and the deals, like that stuff comes later. But when you think about like, what am I putting in front of people? There's a reason you started your business. People would hire you more if they knew what that was. And so being very deliberate or intentional about like, if you were gonna hire you, what would you wanna know? Now just go back to your last 10, 15, 20 sales calls and be like, what are people asking me before they hire? And be putting out content on video, blogs, writing, anywhere that you can, just simply answering the questions people would want to know the answers to if they were going to make a decision to hire your business.
Yeah, that's a really great point because not only with the traditional materials, which we'll talk about in a second, but also your website, your digital marketing, it's all essentially the same concept. If you're very unclear in your advertising, people don't really know what they're looking at, what service you provide. I see it all the time where I can't even tell if they're doing pressure washing or painting or roof replacements. If people don't know, they're just going to skip past it. But if you make it very intentional and very clear what problem they have and how you can solve it, then the likelihood of them actually engaging with it is going to be tremendously higher.
Absolutely.
So that gives us an understanding of like the overall kind of concepts that you should be considering with what you're sending out and what you're putting out. Now, in terms of like the actual tangible of it, whether it's postcard or something else, should they be pushing offers? Should they be listing out services? Should they be, showing Google reviews, stuff like that? What kind of deliverables should actually be on these things?
So you got to give people a reason to do something. There's a book that's 100 years old called Scientific Advertising by Clyde B. Hopkins. And he goes over some very basic math in that book that stays true to this day. There are 3 points of any successful advertising campaign. You need to identify your perfect customer. You need to give them a reason to do something. This day and age, you call it an irresistible offer. You don't have to be that dramatic with it. But then you have to put some urgency to it. And so when I think about like a power washing ad, it's like free window cleaning with any siding cleaning this month, or a deal expires Sunday. You can call out your perfect customer. It's a homeowner in a specific area where you've already done work. You're giving them a deal, an offer, just a reason to do something. When we think marketing, a lot of people go to like, well, I don't want to give a deal. I don't give discounts. I don't do great. You don't have to discount your services to give an offer. You just have to give people a reason to do something, incentivize them. So like, there's all different types of ways to formulate offers, but one of the best ways to do it is just go to the coupon clippers. the Valpaks, the Angie's List big deals, the Groupon stuff, and just look. If you're a brand new business, you're like, I don't know how the hell to discount my services. I'm already cheaper than everyone because I just started. I don't have as much overhead. I don't have to charge as much, whatever. Offers are very important because you have to give someone a reason to call you. I love foot in the door offers for home service, stuff under $100 or under $200 or whatever. Gutter cleaning starting at $129. I'm confident that most people listening to this, if you had leads generated for you, you could do your job. You could answer the phone, go through the estimate process and close 30, 40, 50, 60%, whatever of the estimates that come in. I really, really, really love when people have offers that are seasonal, that lean into something that gets your foot in the door to educate about other services. And those will change depending on your industry or the different time of year. You asked about reviews versus highlighting previous jobs versus letting them know you work in the neighborhood. It's the consistency of the touches. So for someone like a roofing company, I love a cycle of a marketing campaign that happens over a month where you're touching the neighbors of a job like, hey, we just got your neighbor approved for a new roof. Pardon the dust, pardon the noise, we're working in the area. Here's a recent project we finished close to you. Here's an offer, we're gonna be wrapping up, but if you wanna claim it, convert here, act now. Power washing, it's the same thing. Hey, pardon the glare, we just washed your neighbor's windows. If you're in need of services, we have a bundle where any 2 services, you get a 30% discount. We just finished up a project, highlighted Google review. Here's our mascot that happens to be our dog because we're a local business, been open 30 years. Like, you take that concept of what would you want to know about something going on in your area to build trust, because who do people hire? They hire who they know, like, and trust. When we go back to the stat, the average local business is getting 2 to 4 touches on their ideal customer. That ideal customer is the neighbor of your current jobs. You're getting those 2 to 4 touches because you ran Facebook ads in that area. You pulled up in your truck and did the estimate. You door hangered the 5 houses around the job and you left a yard sign. You got your 4 touches. Reinvesting now in that neighborhood or putting them in a cycle of continuing that messaging. So now, if you know you're getting jobs or you're focused in a certain zip code, if you're running Facebook ads of a video around how you're a local business, this time of year, here's the services you offer, and pulling up in your pretty truck that you just got wrapped or whatever, you're looking at it's those same bullet points. What do you need to get in front of them to let them know that you should at least be an option to get in front of? And just that messaging, I like saying, if you're working in a neighborhood, someone should be getting at least minimum 1 touch a week in some way, shape, or form. They could get that touch by seeing you at the gas station in your hoodie. They can see your truck driving through the neighborhood. You could be strategically putting yard signs in the stop signs coming out of neighborhoods that you're working in. So instead of just the yard, when they stop at a stop sign, it's there. Or maybe you're going further with that. The Home Depot, the Walmart, the Whole Foods in the area, the stop signs in those neighborhoods of those strip malls. You got yard signs in there. I've seen guys, I don't love it, but I've seen guys say it works. The Clip Rock flyer thing or what, just those touches that can add up. The messaging should simply be highlighting the same thing we talked about before. Who are your business? What are you doing? But figuring out an offer that works, that when someone calls you for something, you can use that or an add-on to increase the ticket of that job with that offer.
Absolutely. I was actually going to ask about this. I'm really glad you brought it up. Was the touch points. Should it be the same exact thing people are seeing? Should it be, I think you mentioned, what was the exact number, 7 to 10?
7 to 11, and again, people could pick that apart, but that's, again, Harvard, smarter than us, that's what they said. Okay,
so the Harvard people, they said 7 to 11. I wanted to clarify, was that 7 to 11 of mailers or just a yard sign, or is that an omnipresent channel?
No, touches. Facebook ad, seeing the truck, it's not 7 to 11 of one thing, it's a true cross-channel, omni-channel marketing campaign of different channels. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, door hangers, yard signs, Facebook, whatever, different channels, all with that same consistent messaging. They're seeing this. We don't want to, your brand here and a purple unicorn over here and you and a thing over here. That campaign that you're running in that neighborhood, your Facebook ad should look like your website, should look like your truck wrap, should look like your door hanger, should look like your business card, and tying all of that together.
Awesome. So That definitely makes a lot of sense. And in reality, it'll probably be significantly more than just 7 to 11. If they see your yard signs one day, they're going to see it every day for the next, few weeks. So I think an important point that you said is not just showing them the same exact ad. With the mailers you're sending out, it's different every single week. Same messaging, but not the same exact deliverable. So they're learning something new. They're getting a slightly new information from your business. It's the same branding. It's the same awareness, but it's different content that's getting in front of them. And I think that's really important because with mailers, I hear people send out the same exact stuff, once or twice a month, and they change nothing. Where with Facebook ads, they're running the same exact ad for months. In reality, it's the same exact thing. If they didn't engage with it at first, they're probably not going to engage with it. So that's why you need to throw new content at them.
There's another idea of like being selfish for your customer. Oh, I don't look at Facebook ads, so I don't run them. I don't look at mailers. I throw them away. Well, you're not your customer. Sadly and thankfully, you don't need more competition, but at the same time, you're not pulling up at your house to do the work. It goes to the lawn care guy that doesn't cut his lawn or whatever. The idea is some of your, Mike might want to listen to the book. Dave might want to watch the audio. Anna might want to watch the video, whatever. You have to be selfish for your customers by putting out different types of content because they like to do what they like to do. And it's your job to be selfish for them to put out different things on different channels that still all lead to the same direction.
For sure. And so just to kind of wrap everything back together, we talked about who you're sending this to or where essentially. We talked about what we're sending, what they're seeing, and then we kind of touched on how often. So you mentioned sending it out 4 times in a month, so once per week. Would that be the strategy that you would recommend for something like this?
The strategies that we recommend at Dope are either a mailer every week or every other week, depending on how you're combining it with some of the other things you have going on. Yeah.
Okay. So immediately during or right after a job or during their job, you're saying maybe 2 or 4 times in total in that specific cluster?
Absolutely. And that's just with the mailing. I mean, imagine just a world where a postcard costs $1. If you're targeting the nearest 25 neighbors to your jobs, you say I'm going to spend $50 to $100 advertising to the neighbors with mail of that job, but then you're sneaking in your other touches. You go to the value of a lead, the value of a conversion, all of that stuff that I know everyone loves to track so much, but it's important to understand that you can get so much more strategic with spending more money on the right people, not looking at I'm never going to dog something like every door direct mail because it can work. In October, if you send out gutter cleaning mailings on a mass mailer, 10,000 pieces, you will make money every single year. It's just not a predictable, duplicatable thing. I could literally buy 20 trucks for 3 weeks of the year from, the first week of October to the first week of November. But then that's not duplicatable. When you look at something that's duplicatable is I go back to the 1 week, 1 month decisions versus the 1 year decisions in your business. I would think, and again, this is industry specific because the difference of a power washing, business being a $500 ticket and a roofing business being a $10,000 ticket and the margins of different in that. Understanding what you're willing to spend on a customer, specifically in a neighborhood, it's probably just a little bit higher than you think because you're probably spending a little bit too much right now on not the right people. And it's just dialing that up.
For sure. Well, cool. So from here, what I want to talk about, which by the way, I love the fact that you're all about data and automations because I'm huge on those things, but in regards to digital marketing. So hearing you talk about data and automations with traditional marketing is super interesting to me. But we talked a bit about the data. How are you actually automating these processes that you're doing?
Yeah, so at Dope, we built a tool that connects with every CRM on the market where you can just change the status of a job and postcards will automatically go to the neighbors of that job with no minimum order. Unlike a lot of other direct mail or print software companies like us, we actually own our print shop. We're the only ones out of anyone you've ever heard of that is not only providing the software as a service to do this stuff, but we actually own the facility where we manufacture everything. So it goes out on time. It's all trackable. We have a great relationship with the post office to figure out, it's fun to deal with them. They're not a brand new company, but they have their flaws. Automation is very important from a when mail is triggered, but also on a reporting side. because we connect with your CRM, it can show you what days, what houses got a postcard or scanned a QR code or called a call tracking number or visited a landing page. Automation is great for triggers, but automation is even better for reporting. So when you go to the analytics of does your stuff work, you can see that on a very automated way, and we're big on that.
Awesome. So you're referring to like maybe if you have 4 variations of a postcard, you can kind of track which one's performing better than the others?
Down to the headline, like really, really getting granular. We also have some stuff that we've been working on for a while with making like the traditional guerrilla marketing stuff more trackable. Having like, let's say when you ordered a pack of yard signs, those 100 yard signs had a dedicated call tracking number, a dedicated QR code, and a dedicated landing page, and you had analytics on just so you bought those for July. And you committed, I'm going to put out these 100 signs in July all over town or at job sites. Now, month over month, as you make print orders, you can see like individual campaigns. You can test a month next year versus what worked this year. So we're really, really big on just like keeping up on best practices. Another thing I'd share is our functionality hot leads. When you send out a mailing with Dope, you have the opportunity to add what we call hot leads to it, which is where, let's say you send out a mailing of 100 pieces in a neighborhood with, $1 million homes or whatever. On each individual mail piece, we create a QR code that is unique to that address. So when Dave Carroll at 123 Main Street scans that QR code, you get a text message notification that I interacted with that piece of mail that now could show you who's raising their hand. You can create text message flows off that we don't do text message and emailing stuff, but we give you the endpoints to like continue those conversations, keep it going in a very automated way. I like to joke, Michael, like if you would have told me, Dope will be going on 4 years in October. If you would have told me 3.5 years ago I'd own a print shop, I'd tell you were crazy. Like we're a software company. But when we look at the opportunities for advancement in the print and traditional marketing space, I sleep well at night telling you that like we are in the top 5% of print and traditional marketing companies ahead of data and automation, because there's just not been a lot of focus there over the past 30, 40, 50 years in this industry.
100%. Yeah, I think the fact that you guys focus so heavily on data makes a huge difference because, like you said, you can take the shotgun approach and just send it everywhere, send as much as you want, and like something will hit, but you won't really know what hit or like why exactly it hit, so you can't repeat it like you mentioned earlier. Whereas if you're very intentional, you're in a specific area, you're tracking all the data, then you can just keep hammering that area and follow that same strategy in other areas. And to your point, you could send it to tons of people and something will hit, but your cost per maybe customer, your cost per acquisition is going to be much higher than if you're more intentional and hitting the same people repetitively.
Correct.
Awesome. So I think that really brought it in and just made this very actionable to anyone listening. Like it's very clear how to go about this now. So I think this is super valuable. I want to touch on this. It's more so trying to get your perspective on things like this. But I hear people talk all the time about how, they used to send, brownies, cookies, stuff like that to customers after a job is complete, stuff like that to try to nurture existing customers to guarantee future work. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think things like that are necessary, or do you have a different approach to help increase your return rate?
So it definitely depends on the industry you're in or the services you provide. I think that, so there's a book by Jim Rulin called Giftology. And what Jim says is, I want to say it's like, it was either 5, I want to say it was less than 10%. But there's a percentage of the revenue that you collect from a customer each year that you're supposed to be spending to retain them each year. Now, certain services, you might get away with sending a text, an email, a postcard quarterly to just retain business. Like my cleaning company, I'm not sending out, Hermes blankets to people to get their house washed again or something. But if I'm a real estate agent selling luxury properties, I might be doing just that. I think that it's one thing to do like novelty shit. Like as much as you want to believe that someone, we get away with it with Dope with our red hoodies. People like wearing those, but like no one's gonna wear like your swag, your stuff from your company more often than not. I think that it's much more important to look at like it's great to say thank you. If you can find a service, I want to make this a sales pitch for Dope. We do some of this stuff with cookie boxes and whatever. It's great to a certain service, a certain ticket, something like that, to be able to thank a customer for doing something, but then it's like, what's your intention? Are you selling them a box full of tchotchkes or something to use at their house? Like, there are things that I love. Sending someone stuff like a useful thing, like a chip clip, or you've seen people do stuff through, what's that, Cutco, the knife company? Like, I've seen people do cool stuff with that. Do I believe in the home service space that you will retain more customers sending them like a novelty item, a food thing, or something? Maybe. Like, I believe that works. I don't think that it's required. I think that you will retain the most business continuing to educate and provide value to your customers. So a roofer, it's a little bit different. You know, the average American lives in their house for 5 to 7 years. You're usually only going to get like one roof put on your house in the life cycle of when you live there. So like, do you care as much as a roofer? I don't know. If you have a funnel or a follow-up process that says, hey, if you were happy with your job, if you love dealing with Mike, our sales rep, if you did whatever, if you could leave us a review, or we have like I've seen people have really cool incentive programs about referring work. But I think if you truly look at your customer database and you think about like your favorite customers that refer you the most work, it's based off a relationship more than send them a box of cookies or some shit. Now that's a part of it, but I think like as opposed to blanketing with something like that, I think it's more important to be intentional about the relationship building.
100%. And yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially for pressure washing. Like realistically, if you're sending them a few texts a year, emails, every month or so, and then social media, like they're following you guys, they're seeing your content often, that's retargeting, that's remarketing to them, and that's keeping you in the back of mind. So eventually when they need the service, they'll just go to you as long as they had a good experience. I'm curious, obviously that was in regards to remarketing. Are you doing anything with like mailers or postcards to send to existing customers? Like let's say it's beginning of the spring season, it's time to get their next wash. Are you sending stuff out to them?
It goes to being selfish for your customers. So what we do at Lionshare, we segment our database. And clearly sending mail is a little more expensive than sending a text message or a phone call or an email. We segment by money spent the year before, and we sent specific customers. We have customers we mail every month. I have prospects that I mail every week of the year for Lionshare. Like we have homes that every single week of the year, I call the strategy 52 weeks of dope. We're hitting them every single week in the mailbox because I look at that customer. If a postcard cost me $1, would I spend $52 to acquire that customer? So I made a short list of customers that I really, again, it's all off home value. It's another little pro tip here. So many people want to target off income. I want high income. I don't give a shit about income. I want to know what your home is worth. Because what I know is you have to make enough money to afford that home that I'm going to service. So I have a list of homes in the Twin Cities that are over $2 million that I send a postcard to every single week. I think that the advice I would give to a new business or maybe a business in year 1 to 3 or 3 to 5 is segment your customer database by either the service you offer or what they spent last year and figure a line in the sand of like, I would take more of those all day or spend more. I got customers we mail monthly. I got customers we mail quarterly. We use outbound dialing, texting, all of it. We really drill in on our database. But I think mailing your customer database and the ones that matter, like, look, our $130 gutter cleaning customers, I don't spend a ton of money to retain them every year because we've established that relationship. We early discounts for early scheduling, like some other tricks to kind of get around that. One thing that I think that's really interesting when you think about like how often you touch your customers or how you segment your list, I know holiday lighting has got a lot bigger in the power washing industry over the past couple of years. I know like gutter installation is getting bigger in these industries. When you look at like every lead that you generated for Christmas lights for any of you in that service, we treat that list of leads totally different than people that ask for gutter cleaning, especially when we educate really high around that service. Like our minimum's $1,500. We were very transparent around that. So people that come in that raise their hand and say, I'm at least interested, or maybe I would think about spending $1,500 on someone putting lights up in my house. Like I'm banging on you all year in every channel, or something a little bit smaller, a 20 window cleaning deal or a gutter cleaning. I'm not spending as much time on for things that cost money versus something that just takes a little time, like a MailChimp email or a text magic blast or whatever.
That makes sense. So you're not just segmenting by whether they're a customer or not. You're segmenting if they're a customer, what type of customer are they? If they're a lead, what type of lead are they? And then your approach for each segment is going to be a little different.
Absolutely. And enough to get trackable. You don't have like analysis paralysis with this shit. It's so easy to like hear this stuff like, oh my God, I could go crazy. It's like imperfect actions start with a baseline. pick every customer spent over $1,000, bang on them for a quarter and just see what happens versus spending a little more time on them versus just like an average customer.
100%. And that goes back to what you mentioned earlier about being intentional and not so much the shotgun approach, which I think is a huge takeaway. But with that being said, I think this was super valuable. Do you feel like there's anything else in regards to like traditional marketing strategy that we didn't touch on that is just like super valuable that should be shared before we wrap up?
I think if specifically in the home service space, power washers, gutter cleaning, window cleaning, roofing, HVAC, all that stuff, make sure that you are at least doing a 5 around with door hangers and putting yard signs like in the path to your jobs. It's something that like we all do right away. And then as we get a little busier, or like it could be even seasonality. If you're a single owner operator, you're doing that shit, but then like you get busy and you don't do it for a couple weeks, and then you wonder why you don't have any leads in 3 weeks. A wise man once told me, you always have to be priming the pump. An entrepreneur's got 5 fingers on their hand for a reason. 4 things that are working, 1 thing that's disposable that can be replaced and become one of the other 4 at any time. Just constantly have motion, because when you get busy, like there's lulls in every business and every industry. And if you're constantly priming the pump, getting touches in front of people that are more likely to use your services, that's how you truly grow and scale and keep up with all these Lambo driving influencers on the internet.
Awesome. This was great. This is super valuable, not just for the listeners, but even for myself. So once again, I appreciate you hopping on today. For anyone that wants to learn a bit more about yourself or Dope Marketing, where can they find you guys online?
DopeMarketing.com. If you search Dope Marketing on Facebook, you might get a little pop-up saying you're searching for drugs. You're not. It's just us. I'm trying to talk to Zuckerberg about it. He's not picking up his phone. But Dope Marketing, anywhere on the internet, you will find us easily.
Awesome. Once again, thank you for hopping on.
Appreciate it, Mike.